Meanwhile, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said that the United States and Russia still have a good chance of reaching an agreement on Aleppo. He also clarified earlier remarks that he made on a possible halt to combat operations in the city.
I never said that fighting has been fully suspended. It was suspended yesterday so that civilians could leave. Strikes will continue until the bandits leave East Aleppo. This is clear to America and other friends.
Well, Sandra Gathmann has more from Gaziantep near the Turkish-Syrian border. Sandra, we heard from Sergei Lavrov there clarifying some earlier remarks he'd made. He said that the bombing was temporarily halted. Activists say that that's not the case. I mean, is this miscommunication or is it deliberate mixed messages, do you think?
Hard to say, but reports we were getting from the ground were of continued heavy shelling and bombs being dropped on several neighborhoods in Aleppo overnight. But we hadn't quite heard how long that cessation of the Russian and Syrian government offensive was going to last. So the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov there definitely clearing up some confusion. Quite a dangerous time, though, for a lot of medical groups who had already begun some evacuations in East Aleppo. But the Russians say that their line has always been very clear and direct, that they would not halt their operations to clear East Aleppo, in Lavrov's words, of bandits. And they said that Washington has understood this and that all sides have understood that rebel groups must fully withdraw in order for any fighting to stop. So the technical discussions being held between Washington and Moscow, specifically between the U.S.'s Foreign Secretary John Kerry and Sergei Lavrov in Hamburg, now centering on just how these evacuations are going to take place. It's no longer about whether rebel groups are going to be given another option. It's about how they can safely retreat from eastern Aleppo and how civilians can also be safely evacuated, Paul.
Well, Sandra, talking about that exact issue, we're hearing that the UN is now saying that there are reports of hundreds of men going missing when trying to flee from the east to the west. What details have you got on this?
Indeed, this is a report being issued by the UN's Human Rights Office. They say they've received worrying allegations that hundreds of men have disappeared when fleeing from the eastern rebel-held parts of Aleppo city into the western government-controlled areas. One official even pointing to the Syrian government's alleged record of abductions, disappearances, and torture as worrying signs, and of course they want answers on this. But also we have been hearing reports not just from Aleppo itself but from many refugees who fled the fighting that there are serious fears among young men in particular, but also women being detained on that crossing between east and western Aleppo. Allegations too coming into the UN, though, that some rebel groups may have also been preventing civilians trying to escape the fighting and seeking safety as well. So these are the types of safety concerns that the United Nations in particular is bringing to the table as these technical discussions go forward, not as to whether rebel groups and civilians are going to be allowed to evacuate East Aleppo, but just how they can safely do that, Paul.
Okay, Sandra, thank you.